If you feel compelled to dance, you may, and please turn it up. You know I love it loud.
What I've been working on during my Pillow Lab residency is actually two pieces. A project called Sueño, which is a music project that I've been doing of my own songs for the last couple of years. And then the piece I'm working on now is a new project called Super Nothing, which is a quartet for 4 people, 2 from LA and 2 from New York. And that'll premiere next year. So in 2017, I started a project called Sedana, which is sad versions of Madonna songs. And that became a show that actually toured around a lot and has been to several places. But at some point I was like, oh, I would like to be doing more of my own songs. So at the beginning of the pandemic, I had the opportunity to just sort of sit and start generating new material. And then I was approached by Jacob's Pillow if I wanted to have a kind of interaction with the archives here. So I did, and my take with cultural products, which I kind of see these archives as kind of cultural products, is not to just necessarily reject them outright, but to say like, well, what can we do? What can we do to mess with this, right? And I think as a person who was exposed to queer activism pretty young, one of the sort of procedures of queer culture is to take what exists and kind of flip it with humor. That becomes a way that we can be in conversation and even maybe argument with the past, but also not from a place of shutting something down, but being like, no, let's work it in. And I saw this work in the archive that was really interesting, and we kind of like poached some choreography and sort of reimagined it and queered it even further than it already was, and that became a performance version of Sueño.
We don't just get up and dance. I don't know why. I don't just know why. I don't know why. We don't just get up and dance.
Movement can mean so many things, right? In the dance context, it means like dancing movement. It also has an activist association, right? A movement. And then there's just more the generic definition of it, like to move, right? And I was in this moment that I moved. I now live part of the year in a different place than I have spent most of my time the last 27 years. In that sense of constant shift, or in this particular moment, you're confronted with yourself. And you're like, I'm somewhere different, but it's still me. And in that process of becoming bicoastal, I realized that there's a whole other community of dancers and people in Los Angeles that I want to know. And so this piece kind of was a way of bridging those two aspects of my lives, like the part that's been in New York and then the new part. Putting together a cast always feels like a very particular alchemy. For me, when I work with dancers, it's always about working with people who inspire me. Also people who can be conversant and fluent in the discourse of just culture, of like what's happening outside of the studio. That's also become increasingly important to me as a maker, is to think about how the outside of the room is getting inside the room.
Super nothing. What am I finding in super nothing? So I feel like even just today, rehearsing, there is a very hard moment for me, and I had to walk out the room, not because of anything that happened outside, but internally, and that is so super nothing. Like, I'm not getting the step, and I'm feeling like everyone's getting the step, and I'm like, dude, I'm just like not getting it, and it's like, so I walk away because I'm overwhelmed, but then I'm like, are you really this overwhelmed because you're not getting a step? Like, that feels like you're doing a lot over nothing, like a super nothing thing. It's a way to really dive into the importance of the work, or while also having the question of, is this doing anything? But it really is, because I had a whole moment with myself of like, okay, you're being really hard on yourself, you had an injury, you're just coming back into the room. Oh, okay, and actually it just became a moment of therapy for myself to like reconnect and ground. And so it went from this really nothing moment to a really big moment to, okay, grounding it again to nothing, and actually it's something because now it's gonna dive into the next part of rehearsal and like, okay, how do I come back from that?
It's interesting growing up, the older I got, I was like, oh, I want to be a dancer, like a serious dancer. I want to embody these things and like, kind of be referential to certain kinds of training. And what's so great about Miguel and maybe just where I am in my age is that all the information is like needed. I don't have to like put away certain parts of myself to exist in this world. Sometimes I felt that it's like, oh, you have to act these ways, you have to move these ways. I used to be like, oh, I want to leave like my musical theater past behind, or the fact that I like went to a studio and did like some competitive dancing behind just to act like, oh, I'm this company dancer. But in this process, it's kind of like all these things can kind of exist in the same plane, and I'm just using all the tools I have. I mean, the piece is called Super Nothing, and in that it's also everything.
I think a rehearsal process is a revelation of values. It also is a revelation of the level of dynamics that you're willing and able to confront and deal with in real time. It's not like the dance is its own thing and like feelings are over here. So what happens if you take what is there and you kind of bring it into the mix? For this group of dancers, experimentation is the ground floor.
That's what I want to hear. You don't know how to love me, how to make me understand that you wanna be my man. I'm saying you don't know how to feel me, how to live inside my skin that you think you're getting into, baby. You don't know how to do right, how to stand for something real where you say exactly what you feel. You don't know how to love me, how to make me understand that you